Okay, and welcome to today's the Times, the Customs recordings, the look at the absurdities of modern life and how we all deal with them. Usually from the cockpit of a works vehicle on the Isle of Man. Today is no exception. We are in the uplands of the Isle of Man, where, as you can see, the gorse is running riot already, and we're only in February, so that sort of makes up for the miserable weather today. Now, what am I going to talk about today? Well, today is an obscure one, so if you just bear with me. It's about supporting the alleged sex offender, or besieged sex offender, if you like. Bit of a weird one, but I'll tell you my experiences of it. I've never done things the conventional way. For my 30th birthday, instead of a jaunt round the local pubs dressed as Marvel comic heroes, I hired a ramshackle church hall, told everyone to bring their own, and organised a party where the theme was everyone had to come dressed as celebrities who'd been accused of sex offences but were subsequently proved as being innocent. It wasn't a success, the reason being there was one fatal flaw. Everyone, I mean everyone including the women, came dressed as Matthew Kelly. I was hoping that at least one person would come dressed as John Leslie, but alas, it didn't happen. Now, needless to say, it was a grim atmosphere, it was a total washout. It was almost as if, by dressing as Matthew Kelly, everyone was feeling the same sense of injustice and depression and stress and anxiety that being accused of the crimes he was accused of sort of transmitted to everyone at the party. And as the dust settled over the next few days, I too felt it, and I realised that actually being accused of sex offences isn't really a laugh, particularly if you are innocent, and something should be done to support the besieged sex offender. It seemed as if the balance was almost exclusively weighted in favour of the accuser rather than the defendant. So, what I did about it was I raided my piggy bank and I found myself in a top QC's office in London. I bypassed the Manx legal system and went straight for the jugular. He said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "I would like to go about changing the sex laws of Britain, and with particular interest in those accused." He said, "Well, that might be a bit of a tall order, and it's going to be costly. Do you have the money?" I said, "Yes, I do." He looked at me and said, "Right, we can do business, as lawyers tend to do." He said, "Well, what's your point?" I said, "I would like to campaign that all sexual offences committed between 6 p.m. on a Sunday night and 6 a.m. on a Monday morning be given a reduced sentence on the ground that every one of us, and I mean every one of us, gets a bit lonely on a Sunday night." He looked pensively and said, "I don't know, but we can give it a go. Here's my bill." A few weeks later, I found myself in court, a court where laws are debated and perhaps changed. It was one of the highest courts in the land. My QC took to the stand and argued my point that all sexual offences committed between 6 p.m. on a Sunday and 6 a.m. on a Monday be given lighter sentences on the ground that we all get a bit lonely. He stated that, come on now guys, we've all sent a pleading email, a emotional text message, a, shall we say, risque message on Tinder, made an unwise choice on a webcam on a Sunday night. Let's get this law changed. It didn't happen. It was thrown out instantly. It was not a success, and I was several tens of £1,000s lighter. However, the whole process of being a social justice warrior invigorated me. I found some purpose in life, and I devoted myself to the cause of the besieged alleged sex offender. I felt it was a good use of my time and money, and I wanted to be the man to change their plight for the better. So I decided I'd gone in too big too soon, and I headed straight for a local advocate's office in the Isle of Man, where I wandered in and I said, "Dear Mr. Advocate, I would like to make a trust fund." He said, "Yes, that is very simple, but it is costly to administer. Do you have the money?" I said, "Yes, I do." And again, as lawyers tend to do, he said, "Great, we can do business." He said, "Now this trust fund, is it for the wife and the kids?" I looked at him, I chuckled and said, "No, Mr. Advocate, this is 2019, nobody bothers with this, with the wife and the kids anymore." He looked sheepish. He looked up and down the photo of his wife and kids on the desk. He then took a cautionary glance at the slender legs of the secretary. His legal secretary sat not 10 yards away from him through a glass window, gulped, and I drew my own conclusions from his body language, as I'm sure you are now. But I am off at a tangent there. So the advocate said, "If it's not for your wife and kids, who's it for then?" I said, "This is going to be the Dreamberry Trust, which supports all those on the island who have been accused of sex offences, and it will help pay for their legal fees." He looked pensively, stroked his chin and said, "That's a very noble thought, Mr. Dreamberry. However, there is a certain stigma around sexual offences, and the knuckle-dragging Hang 'em High Brigade will not be too impressed with that. Can you cope with it?" I said, "Yes, I can. I feel as though it is for the good of society." He said, "Fine." He then stroked his chin once more and looked very seriously at me in a way only lawyers can. He said, "I can see one further fatal flaw with this, Mr. Dreamberry. There is the issue that many people accused of sexual offences are actually guilty of them." I said, "Oh, I hadn't actually thought of that. Right. You see, I've been so wrapped up in the feelings of Matthew Kelly, of his plight, of his issues with being wrongly accused, that I'd actually missed the point that many people accused had been guilty. My mind went back to some heinous sexual crimes that I had heard of, and I said, "I am sorry, Mr. Advocate, I've made a dreadful mistake. Thank you for pointing out that rather gruesome fact that many people are indeed guilty. I had completely overlooked it, and all those years of legal training, all those tens of thousands spent on legal education, all those hours spent in textbooks of law were well spent. You've saved me from making a massive mistake." He then looked rather worried. I suspect he was disappointed at losing a potential cash cow, but I had vaulted out the office. Nevertheless, the bill for an hour of his time did arrive on my door several days later, unsurprisingly. Therefore, the moral of the story is I had overlooked the key point. I had got so emotionally involved in being a social justice warrior that I had completely forgotten that a lot of people are actually guilty of crimes. My mistake. So I've vowed to let such campaigns fall into the hands of the likes of Peter Tatchell from now on. I will return to lying in my rather unkempt bedroom watching old Pet Shop Boys DVDs, as I have done for many years. Don't let my cautionary tale with regards to making society better harm your own desires to do so. I made a rather stupid mistake with my career on that one. Don't let that put you off though if you have better ideas. Anyway, all the best. Bye.